We are live. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I'm standing up right now because I am broadcasting from my basement. And you're probably wondering, well, why do you have to stand up for that? Because there are no chairs in my basement for an adult human being. Everything in the basement, it's like the kids' play area. So they're all tiny chairs. So right now, I am parked right next to the washer and dryer. And yeah, I've just put this all together. I'm feeling good standing. I'm feeling healthy. Feel like I can do like, I don't know, at least 45 minutes. We'll see what happens to my lower back. But I am very excited to be joined this evening by a comedian. I've known him for a few years and I've really enjoyed his stuff. And I want to introduce him to you. And without further ado, here's Derek Humphrey.
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. Derek, thanks for joining me, man. And like I said in my amazing intro, I'm in the basement. Do you have a basement wherever you
I
are?
I do not have a basement. I have a spare office. This looks like a macabre room for sure. It's red, and and my lighting is bad. So yeah, it looks like I'm in a basement for sure. More so than you even.
Well, most of the people who are going to be consuming this episode, they're going to be, consuming it just like the audio, so we can make our rooms any way we want. So
Gotcha.
we can make them as macabre as we want to make them.
Okay,
Did
good.
So yeah, the red on the wall that you have there, it's like a Merlot, I'm thinking.
It is. It was supposed to be a color called berry, but it's a better accent color than it is a main color. So now I have to paint over it.
Wait, did you guys do it? Did you make that choice?
I made this choice. I wanted something funky for the office, and it didn't pan out the way that I wanted to.
Did
So now I have to own it and fix it.
Wait, so when you said that you're looking for an accent, is it just the one wall? Is it an accent
No,
wall?
no. This paint is a better accent color paint than it is a main color paint. So it's like,
Got it.
yeah, this should be for like trim or for like if you're gonna make like a border or something along those lines. It's not like the main color. It should be like green or gray
Have
or something like that.
uh, I know you as a comedian, but have you been an interior decorator this whole time?
Never once. That's why this looks so bad. I don't know how many interior decorators would tell you to hang your Dyson next to your resistance bands. And judging by this double chin that I have in this video, it does not look like I use those resistance bands, but I do.
You've been getting reps in on the Dyson. Well, it's funny. Like I think a lot of people, like, they have the dream of having like a home office, and I have a home office. The issue is it's on the first level of the house, and right
Mhm.
above me are where my kids sleep. So Tuesday nights when I've started live streaming, my wife has told me, you're really loud and like you're waking them up. So
Yeah.
now I'm all the way in the basement. I feel like this is like where, like a suburban housewife would go to cry. Like that's where I'm
Mhm.
coming right now.
Or it's where like a suburban dad would go to like
Podcast.
I was gonna say lift weights, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, my wife tells me that this room is her version of, or excuse me, my version of like the garage.
Yeah.
Where like I come in here and I try to like write jokes or do research or update my podcast or whatever, and I just spend hours toiling away at comedy related things like I'm in a mine shaft or something.
Yeah. Is it easy for you to like, are you able to, sort of tuck yourself away and get to work? Are you able to
No,
do that? No.
no, I have ADD. It's very difficult for me to get anything done. Are you that type of person? You accomplish a lot. And you are like all over the place, always putting out like different projects and books and like speaking events and comedy stuff. And I'm like, I wish I had that wherewithal. I was always raised on like just looking for a paycheck and like going to do job to job or like check to check or whatever. And you're like a gumption, like I'm gonna create or address a market,
I,
sort
I
of initiative. I know I'm envious of it.
Oh no, I appreciate that, man. Well, it's like a long time coming. It's something where, when I wrote the book, it was me looking back on like 20 years of comedy.
Right.
In all these different iterations or all these different genres. So like doing improv and moving from improv to sketch and then to stand up, and
Yeah.
then uh I think it's one of those things where you turn around and you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 15 years, I've been doing it for 20 years. It's like all those reps are there,
Mhm.
so it's very different than, I guess, if I was just starting out and being like, okay, I want to write a sketch. What do I do, to do a sketch?
Right, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and well, also though too, I think it kind of like addresses, as you mentioned it though too, like also to some extent, like I don't know, cultural shifts and things like that, and like what I think like the typical. I don't know. It's hard for me nowadays to kind of pinpoint what people find funny. I don't think there's as much universal or like ubiquitous humor as there used to be either. And I feel like we find like a lot of different lanes in it now. So I've come back to wanting to involve myself in writing more like traditional narrative or even serious like sort of books and things like that, because like stand-up comedy can just burn you out. You
Yeah.
know, I used to be thin and good looking, and now look at me, I'm like Jesus.
But what is it like, the burnout with stand up that you find? I mean, I find that now it's a lot tougher for me to do, I guess, what we would call the grind that I would used to do, just because working all day, and then the prospect of like going to like mics, and like waiting around for such a long time just to go up and do a few minutes, and all
Sure.
that, like that's just it's like, okay, I'm glad I did that so much 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, absolutely, yeah. Like that level of the Malcolm Gladwell thing of the 10,000 hours. If you got in 5,000 of them in the first like couple years, if you spread out the other 5,000 over the course of like the subsequent 5 years after that, you're fine.
Yeah.
It is. I never really looked at it as a metric like that because there's some really funny people who didn't put 10,000 hours into being funny. I mean, unless you count all the times like detention or whatever, but like, but yeah, but no, for sure. And for me, it's just changed. I'm kind of in the same place. I don't have that should be my wife. But it is also like I'm very concerned about the future and having like money for the future. So
Yeah.
that factors in somewhat to how I spend my time nowadays. And like it used to be fun to go hang out in Brooklyn till 2, 3 in the morning, and now it's like I'd really rather be back in Queens by midnight if I could. Having been paid to do my art form, I don't like to look at it exclusively the metric of like getting paid. You know what I mean? But like, things that are substantive that like make me happy, or like, and that's generally speaking, that's just doing comedy for an audience. And so,
Yeah.
For as much comedy as there is right now, live, there's so much more of it on your phone and people stay home. So like having a good show in front of an audience is like just paramount.
Yeah. Well,
Which sounds weird to say in comedy.
no, but I've noticed it too. And you brought up sort of it's kind of hard to tell now, like what people think is funny, like they're like that, as far as like a universal. Because if people were to go to like your Instagram page, like you've been killing it with like roast battle stuff,
Thank you.
and no, and it's something where I've reached out to you, before to let you know, like I'm very happy when I see you perform. Like I
Thank
really
you.
love, I really no, I love seeing you on stage with a mic and doing your thing. But it's interesting because um, it's like what does so well live might not necessarily translate that well into like what people want to see on Instagram or TikTok,
Oh
where
yeah.
where it's like you might have like this freaking just killer bit about anything, but in the end, like maybe what they really want is to have you like, going after Matt Broussard, in
Oh,
a
for
roast
sure.
battle.
Yeah. There's a certain, there's still a certain appeal in comedy that's like mean or mean spirited or told in the vein of like, wanting to just, I don't know. Jokes exist. Like, Matthew Broussard is a guy that like I really like a
Yeah.
lot and respect a lot. And he works harder than I do. And he's still not satisfied. So like I really appreciate and respect that guy a lot. Him doing that was like a bigger thing for me than it was for him. That's for sure. And so I hope that people can appreciate that if I'm joking about his dad having Parkinson's, it's because these are just jokes. You know what I mean? They exist outside the boundaries of like morality in a sense. It is what you kind of use to like make sense of the world is humor. It's what you do to cope.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm doing. And I think that in and of itself is pretty universal. It's just hard to find things that like, there are a lot of comics. There are very few comics who have just like this huge, broad appeal. Like in the terms of like, if you go to a Jim Gaffigan concert and he'll sell out a stadium, it's generally kind of like along the lines of the same type of person, Midwestern, white couple, or maybe even a white, like a family. And you probably have some other, not categorizing everybody as one thing, we probably have some other demographics that exist within there, but then
that they've been adopted. They've been adopted by the white parents,
right,
and they brought them to the Jim Gaffigan concert.
Right. But you'll also see like who is it? Joe Coy do the same stadium, and his stadium is full of a demographic that looks more like him. And so there's just an opportunity for everybody to be able to have their audience. It's rare to see somebody who is like, no matter what, like, background you have, you find this person funny. Like, which is fine, but you can't find those topics and everything in, ubiquitous experiences. I think we all want to like be loved, and we all have parents, and we all have like an upbringing and stuff. Like relatable stories are good. But it's just like, how generic do you want to be? How specific can I make my personal experience to hopefully make it funny?
Yeah.
Which, I haven't done one bit this podcast. Is this a comedy podcast?
I was actually asking myself that. I was asking myself that earlier today because I was I have the podcast through, I think, what's it, Libsyn? Like that's where I put the audio and it distributes it. And I was going over it, and it's in the comedy category, and I'm like, well, I'm a comedian, and I sometimes have other comedians on,
sure.
But then I'm like, it's not like we're doing like characters and bits and stuff like that.
Riff and bits, no, for sure.
I mean, I'm down to riff and all that, but I think I don't know. I mean, it seems like everything's sort of kind of falling into that theme of it's like what is universally recognized as comedy or even entertainment.
Right. Some people really dig Russian dash cam videos, and that's their entertainment. You know what I mean? It's hard to account. People watch people popping pimples nowadays. There's this recording that I heard. I'm a big fan of Henry Rollins, and but like from like years ago, like when I was a kid, I would go like watch his shows and stuff like that.
Right.
And he, after Columbine happened, he recorded this album. And one thing he said, this is in like 1997, he said, someday we're going to have a generation who just lives on watching people like stamp bottles and go through a factory existence. And we're going to watch those people's lives because our lives are going to be so much more like what happened today, like with the Columbine shooting, than it is anything else that we're like used to. And he was kind of right. I mean, now like, my wife watches a bevy of like reality shows and stuff like that, or like, or there's a whole subset of like people who watch people be fat on TV nowadays and watch their existence because that's their form of life, entertainment, because everything in their day-to-day world is so freaking crazy. You know what I mean? The stuff that we had to deal with, like, you know, traditionally, maybe, you know, it's just how I feel personally, but like, I mean, you know, day-to-day life is crazy, so we want some sense of normalcy. So we're watching somebody stamp bottles for a living on TV instead of watching MacGyver. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing's passe now because now, like, we just read about bombings all the time instead of having to watch MacGyver for them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder though how that relates to like something like what was like my 600 pound life. Is that what the like those shows are called?
Something like that. Yeah. Well, it's just where we just like take like such a an interest in like reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just we forgo like narrative or crafted story or anything like that. You know, and you know, so yeah, for whatever reason, like I feel like that's what like kind of grew to prominence. Like as people like kind of like it seems, in my opinion, to some degree, like society can be is like unnerving over the last 25 years. And so I think people just started to be more invested in that sort of thing because it is a sense of normalcy for them because there are real life things versus the things that really exist in the world today that as humans we never really even encountered before. You know, I don't think we were meant to stare at a blue screen for, I look at mine 20 hours a day. I'm always refreshing for likes. So like,
do you get the updates? Do you get like the weekly updates? Like your screen time is down or up?
Yeah, even when I don't want to get them, I get them. I forget how to turn it off, but yeah, I would if I could.
Yeah, well, even like those calculations, it's like, oh, your screen time is down 15%. And you're like, from what? It's like, oh, from instead of 6 hours a day, it's down 15% to, you know,
Right,
5 hours and
to 5
something.
hours. Yeah. And some change. And you're like, that's still, it's better than it was before, but that's still not good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it seems like a lot of entertainment, like you describe, that I get caught up in. It involves watching other people doing stuff, right? So obviously the easy one is porn, where you're watching other people have sex. You're a spectator, but yet I think it's also hitting certain parts of your brain where you feel like you're actually kind of involved, in one way or
Sure.
another. So you have like that. I think on more of a positive side, because I think obviously porn can have some negative effects on you if you're watching it right. Like I love watching like the pimple popper videos and the earwax stuff, and I don't know what that is, because
Right. Because you understand the sensation of both. And you're like, what if that were me experiencing that right now? Because, like, for example, I watched the chiropractor ones. And so
is that like the neck snaps? And
those are the ones I don't like, but more when like you're laying on the table and you take a deep breath and somebody has their hand just like in the middle vertebrae, and you breathe down and they crack your back and you can hear it like popcorn kind of crack into place. I wish somebody would do that for me, but I'm too scared to go to a chiropractor.
Well, they're charlatans. So
exactly, but when you see them do it good, you're like,
well, I love that idea of I'm gonna readjust your spine, and you're good. Like I just readjusted your spine, and now you're all now you're good forever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I've seen some videos and they're like miracle videos almost of like a guy who like couldn't walk before he came into getting his chiropractor, his back adjusted, and then he went from like this crooked back like 5'9" person to being like a 6 foot tall like proud walking person again, and you're like, somebody's got to have some kind of an idea of how this works.
Derek, Derek, man, I'm 5'10". I've wanted to be 6 feet tall for so long.
Go see a chiropractor.
I'm gonna eat my words. I'm gonna go see one of these freaking charlatans and these doctors of chiropractic.
Well, I started doing foam rolling. My wife got me into that in yoga a few years ago, and
That's good for you.
it is. It is. I started doing it, especially in the back. I felt taller. I felt like I was walking straighter. You know? But the thing that the thing that fucked me up the most. I didn't mean to swear. Sorry.
Oh no, you can just
swear.
Okay.
Yeah. God, this is a free.
It's my show, man.
The thing that screwed me up health-wise more than anything was COVID. And just being like locked up for that long, indoors and stuff like that. Like that really like deteriorated my health more than anything. And so, I gotta I'm all sorts of concerned about my back. And that's why I watch those chiropractor videos. I get lost down in like that whole rabbit hole. Because you're right. We want to be like a bystander to reality in a sense,
Like, yeah. And
we experience it by proxy.
Yeah,
I guess is what I would say. Yeah,
and also I think for a lot of the things too, it's sort of there's what sensationalizing stuff. I mean, look at all of the docuseries about serial killers. There's something really attractive about what's probably like the ultimate transgression, which is not killing not just one person, but killing multiple people.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I often I think often like the most like interesting stories about people are people that like you're really happy are not in your life. Like some of the most interesting fucking people are also the most fucked up people, and you're like, thank God they're not in my life. Like I love Richard Pryor as a comedian, as an actor. He's incredible.
But you don't want to chill with him.
No, I know not. I don't want him dating my sister. People
right,
like, why Lou? Because he's black. It's like, no, because he beats the shit out of his wives and girlfriends, and he's he used to smoke crack and shoot up his fucking shoot up his car and stuff. Yeah,
right. He had a lot of proclivities for danger, and you don't want somebody like that introduced into your life or your family's life for sure. I mean, there are some buddies of mine who are like really great comics. I love seeing them, but I don't want to hang out with them. Like into it, because their lives are a mess. So I get that entirely.
Yeah, I was wondering like if there was like a deal to be made, as far as like being funny, like if there was a way that I could be like at like 10% funnier, but my life would have to be like 10% more fucked up. I don't know if I would take that, like I'm very much like kind of like you want to be home in Queens sleeping like by midnight. I want to be back in my house by like 10:30, 11.
Sure.
So like even that, little differential, like I'm not sure I'm willing to give it if I'm going to be, just a little bit, funnier.
I don't know that there's an exchange like that necessarily, because some of the people I know who are like the funniest people are some of the hardest working, and they definitely just like they're actually pretty boring. They're actually kind of like boring off stage and whatnot, but they're like really successful, and that's what enables them to be successful. And so it takes all kinds. Funny isn't like a quotient in my opinion. It's just a thing that happens and something that you do, and as comedians, you just kind of see an opportunity to say or contribute something funny to a situation, and then you do your best to land your joke so as not to offend anybody, or alienate too many people.
Well, I know some of the funniest people aren't comics, like people who just do amazing, like in a room, in a conversation, like around the table. But a lot of the guys that I know who are super funny like that, like they're deathly afraid to even get up on stage and try to do something. It's like a completely different animal.
Yeah, the funniest guy I know is a real estate agent in Daniel Island, South Carolina. Like, some of my friends are like, my little brother is probably funnier than I am. I was like,
I have one of those.
Yeah,
I got a
yeah,
little brother who's funnier than I am. Yeah.
yeah, and at least, especially nowadays that I'm an old curmudgeon and stuff, I don't think I've been funny one time on this podcast. but you know, some of the funniest people in the world, they don't make it, or because stand-up comedy as an art form and as a business is its own thing, and you have to learn to navigate both of those. Just because you're funny doesn't mean you're going to be necessarily good at like the art form of stand-up comedy. And just because you're putting stand-up comedy out there doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping to continue to put out good comedy as best I can.
Well, you have is it a play? Is it a movie that's coming?
Good question, because
definitely plug that.
Because it is called Race the Movie, the Play. It's two writers, Brett Raybould and Christian Durant. They wrote the script for a movie. COVID took away the funding for the movie, so they decided to do it as a play to raise money on their own or interest on their own to showcase the script for a potential buy-in. And so Brett asked me to play a role of a character in it, and they brought me into it. And then I got to ended up getting to play a few different characters, and then they all allowed me to do a little bit of they had a real collaborative effort among the cast and crew and everything like that. So we all worked on it to make it like a better piece. And it's super funny. So we're showcasing it at Soho Playhouse for the month of May. We got 14.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 14 dates in the month of May. If you go to my Instagram, Derek, I've got a link tree in there. I've got tickets available there. There's a promo code, Racism Solved, all one word. The movie, if I'm going to plug the movie at all, if we could call it not another slave movie, that's what we would have called it. But that doesn't necessarily get people in the door, at least for the play so far. But
it'll get people outside the door wanting to shut the play down. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. That would actually be the best press available.
I'm sorry. Can you just imagine someone who's like big movie buff? My favorite movies are slave movies. Like I can't get. Yeah. I've watched every slave movie. I know all the lines and all the directors.
Color Purple, Glory. I mean, these are all Amistad. Yeah. I
haven't seen 12 Years a Slave, though. That's the only one. That's the only slave movie that I have.
Oh, I own 4 copies. If you like digital, Blu-ray, Laserdisc, or CD-ROM, I've got them all. So it is a send-up of like some of those, it's like a Mel Brooks style movie, like Spaceballs was to Star Wars and all those things. This is like a Wayans Brothers version of Green Book, and so it's super funny. It stars Dean Edwards, formerly of Saturday Night Live, Brett Raybould, and then a bevy of like really up and coming young comics, and then old fucks like me. So
is it are you guys doing it? Is it a like a script reading, or is it like
no? It's a full-on production.
Oh wow, okay.
We've done some script readings before. The script readings are fun, but to really get a sense of what it is that we're going for, you got to see like the full-on production. There's a lot of physical comedy to it. There's a lot of timing to it. There's a musical production for it, so we have a piano player who plays throughout the whole thing live with us. So like it's a full immersive sort of interactive play experience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's off Broadway. We won the New York Theater Festival of 2022. We won Best Actor, I believe, and Best Screenplay for the festival. And then it was the first ever play that was a part of the New York Comedy Festival this past year. So hoping for some big stuff for it for sure. So yeah, you guys want to come see it, please come see it.
And what's it been like for you, like doing live theater now?
It's been great. It's been the project that I've kind of really been the most proud of, or at least pumped about. since I've been in New York. I've had a lot of things kind of fall through, in my career, either pre-COVID or, during COVID, and some missed opportunities that would have like really helped like me out personally and professionally, but been chugging along. And then I almost didn't do this because I just wanted to focus really on stand-up. I'm trying to put an album out before the end of the year. And I read through the script. It was so funny, and then I just was like, I just want to be a part of something. And there's such a good collaborative vibe to it that it's just been a lot of fun to do. And it's just fun to do it, and I'm proud to do it. And it's the thing that like has had the most merit and drawn the most attention to like a lot of us who have been kind of overlooked in comedy for a few years.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm trying to think of the last time I've done like live theater. Like we used to do like sketch comedy at the UCB theater.
Yeah.
But before that, like in college, I was in like I guess like a couple of plays, and they would run for like a weekend. You'd be working on them for months, and you do them for a weekend, and then that would be done.
Right. I did choir when I was in school, and then there was another thing for 1 year, and there was like some small productions I did as part of like Cub Scouts when I was like really young. But outside of that, I was like too big for theater. They were like, "No, you gotta play football, man.
During
you're too dumb, too big." Like I would have rather been involved in theater growing up as a kid, instead of giving my knees and my back away to the idea of football.
Well, I think there's a movie right there. You have that
Right.
young football player who
I'm going to re-enroll in high school is what I'm going to do, Drew Barrymore style. Oh no, did I lose you? Lou, you froze on me. I can see that the timer is still moving, so I think Lou froze. I'm not sure if he's able to rejoin. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I can hear him again. I was carrying it for you while you were gone.
Thank you. And I was speaking too. So in a way, we were doing like I hope we were harmonizing. Just to get the whole choir thing. I was saying that there's a movie right there of the football kid who doesn't want to get concussions anymore. He just wants to sing, man.
Yeah, no, I was saying that is a good movie idea. That is a good movie idea. I was saying that I should go re-enroll in high school. And then Drew Barrymore style from Never Been Kissed, and then like do drama club that way.
Man, yeah. Yeah, it would be a way different movie with a dude, with a big dude.
Oh, but you can't protest it. I just want you to know that right now. You're stifling my identity.
Well, you were talking. So during COVID, for when you said you were kind of like locked away, like which sucked, and then with this movie, it ended up losing its funding while.
Yeah, I wasn't a part of it at that point. It's just when it became a play and they needed to start casting the play, they just like reached out to me directly, which was very sweet because I've ran into people who like actually had to go through casting recently. So I was like very honored by that. And then they've been super collaborative. Yeah, that happened independently. For me personally, the COVID just like I was, really bummed out when we closed New York down like that second time, and it just took the wind out of my sails. Like in the dire situation, the stress that everybody was putting on, like what was going on, and like everybody's like bleak, like oh we're not going to live much longer. Life's always going to be like this from now on.
Right, the new normal, right?
Yeah, the new normal sort of thing. Yeah, and I just sat around my apartment because they're even like you can't go outside. And after a while, I was just like, I gotta get outside. This is ridiculous. Like,
and can we just? I mean, what like out of all the insane things we were told, like the idea of just staying indoors was one of the most insane things.
Like, right, instead of doing the vitamin D thing and like
getting air.
Yeah, getting air, getting sunlight, which like pretty much helps. Even if you were like distance from somebody else. That class is like, hey, I stayed 6 feet away from you, but like I'm outside. And I'm, even though I think some people have said the 6 feet thing is like stupid, or that wasn't even applicable. I think the thing is that it was just more of like, I mean, definitely within my lifetime, I doubt that I'll ever like really allow myself to go through something like that sort of thing again. Because it just turned out like, while I appreciate everybody's caution, it was like after a certain while, like, all right, we got to get back to living again.
Yeah.
This is actually causing us more damage by, staying in here than it is by just living, So,
Well, yeah, and I think it also revealed the types of people who like thrive in that environment. Now, I don't mean like thrive in that like the type of people who are going to be like fuck this, I'm going out, I'm not listening to. I'm talking about the people who really like relished the idea of everybody being locked away, everybody being like basically shut down. There are a lot of
Right.
people who really like that, and during COVID, that's when my wife gave birth to our first son. Well, both of them, I guess, technically are COVID babies, but this was March 26th, 2021, and we had
Oh
like,
wow. Okay.
so it was right at the height of it,
Right.
and we looked at it as we were going to be sort of isolated anyway with the baby, for a little while.
Sure.
It looking back, it is insane just how isolated we were in that like our parents didn't come visit us at our apartments. It took
Yeah.
us a while to venture outside to to meet with them, and
Mhm.
it's just it was crazy. But I forget
Yeah,
how. Oh, sorry, good.
I was saying there's some people I just hadn't seen for like I just saw my cousin and his family for the first time since pre-COVID, since the
Wow.
Christmas before COVID, and when last I saw them, their son was 6 and now he's 10. And you're just like, that's just insane for me to go that long without seeing like family or like close family and stuff. So
Yeah, and for us when we eventually like ventured out, we were in Brooklyn Heights, so we would walk around our neighborhood, and it felt so good just to be out, and any like semblance of normalcy or the way that things were before, we absolutely loved it. So there was one time when we were walking around our neighborhood, and on Atlantic Avenue there's a pizza restaurant, pizza place called Table 87,
okay.
and we were walking by, and they had 2 tables set up outside, like right next to the storefront.
Mhm.
And we were like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, they have 2 tables set up. And this amazing thing happened where I got to go inside and order pizza. And then I took the pizza and we sat down, me, my wife, and our baby in the stroller, and we got to eat pizza outside at a restaurant for the first time in however many months.
Oh
It,
yeah,
it was,
yeah.
it was, dude, we were so elated. We were so happy. Then, some days pass, and we're doing the same loop that we normally do, and
Yeah.
we're both like, we got to go get some more. We got to go do this again.
Right.
And then we go back to the place, and the tables are gone. The tables and chairs aren't there.
Mhm.
And I went inside, and I asked the woman, hey, what happened? And the owner said that yes, somebody called 311 on them,
Oh
and
God.
if they kept those tables out there, they were running the risk of getting fined like $5,000.
That's so insane.
Think about the type of person you have to be to see tables outside a fucking pizzeria when restaurants are struggling, restaurants are closing down, where
Yeah.
there are people fucking dying, not only from COVID, but also for all the other shit associated with it. And you call the fucking, like, basically you call the cops on
You
these
call the
people.
cops. Yeah, way to be a hall monitor for the man.
Yeah, just
You
like
know?
just an
Yeah.
awful human being.
What,
And those are the people that thrive. They were loving that stuff.
and in that neighborhood, no offense, but they probably are the type of white people who are also like yes, BLM, please burn down some businesses that are not in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And they're going to be the first ones to call the police whenever it suits their little imperialistic needs to not want to see people. Let people exchange COVID if they want to anymore. You know what I mean? You're just going to stay in your house anyways, you mean old biddy. I don't know why everybody has to like ruin everybody's fun. I really don't get it.
Yeah, but that's what we were dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
My pizza, man. There was good. There was
but there's a thing those people need to socialize. I mean, like,
oh, it's 100%. It's not just pizza. It's not just the pizza. Like the pizza becomes, a symbol for what people, what you're giving up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, but now you're in Jersey now, aren't you?
I am. I'm in Jersey. I'm in.
That's how you have a basement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you have a suburban dad basement.
I can't wait to get a bunker, man. If I get a bunker, I'm going to go down there like a bomb shelter. That's where I'm going to really do my podcasting. That's where I'm going to do some really out there edgy podcasting.
You can see you with like your grenade launchers behind you.
Yeah.
It's called the Outpost.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go. Good.
Do people kind of come at you from time to time as being like kind of aligned with extremism? Do they misinterpret like some of your ideals for like some sort of like some sort of extremist one, I guess you would say?
Oh, I mean, I definitely have extremist views. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you said that. And no, I was the one to say in what sense. I mean, like, okay.
Derek's like, we got him. He's admitting it.
Yeah. Well, what would you consider to be extremist?
Oh, well, that's the thing of,
Well, here, let me contextualize it in this.
Sure.
I'm going to be at the Skank Fest in Las Vegas. And,
cool.
Coming up. The first round of tickets are already sold out. But if anyone wants to come here in Vegas, come to Skank Fest. But those guys are notorious for being like, the Gas Digital platform. I'm sure you're probably familiar. Big J, Okerson, Louis J. Gomez. They're kind of notorious for being synonymous with what you would call like free speech comedy or edge comedy or something like that, which is not something that I participate in. However, they are the only people who are putting me up to do their comedy festival. It's like, my wife is very concerned that I might be misrepresented as somebody who is like of that ilk. Which, I mean, listen, I believe in the First Amendment and everything like that. So say whatever you want. Doesn't bother me one bit. I don't want to be misrepresented or mislabeled. So I keep a certain kind of wall up. But what's the thing that you consider extremist? I never would really consider you extremist.
I mean, I'm probably, probably when it comes to guns, I've made a joke before that the Second Amendment is an infringement on gun rights, so it needs to be abolished. We need to get rid of it. I'm halfway joking on that, but
yeah, as I say, it's only a joke if you mean it as a joke. If you're halfway kidding, I get it. Because I'm fine with the Constitution. I get the joke behind it for sure. And my whole thing too is with it. The guy. Okay, let me ask you this: where do you stand on the NRA then? Are they a good or bad organization?
I used to be an NRA supporter, but I think they're bad for gun rights.
Why do you think they're bad for gun rights?
I think that I think, like, historically speaking, they've gone along with a lot of like gun control.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. As opposed to standing up and fighting back. Two things I'll say. One thing about like the NRA in particular, they are like a boogeyman. But a lot of people, a lot of I guess gun control proponents they keep repeating this idea that it's because the NRA and lobbyists are buying politicians. That's why we have so many guns, in this country,
Sure.
as opposed to dealing with the reality of no, Americans love guns, and
Right.
the NRA and the lobbyists happen to share this, love. And I just said that I don't like the NRA, but it's like they are the Second Amendment stands because there are a lot of people who support it, not because they're being paid to uphold it. It's sort of like I love pussy. There's no lobbyist giving me money to be attracted to women. You know what I mean?
I
It's
wish
like
there was.
I mean that would be pretty pretty amazing. And then I just want to say something about like the extreme, the extremist thing. It's also like, how is that word or that term being wielded, right? If it's being wielded in a, in a political sense, it's a way to, label somebody as a, to other somebody and say that you don't have to deal with this person. They're crazy.
Right.
It's a way to push it out, or it's even a way for, politicians to enact legislation to, surveil people who are quote unquote extremists. I mean, there was a time when, you would have a Gadsden flag, don't tread on me flag. Like you were an extremist for having that flag. And it's like, holy shit, but those are all my buddies who I know. Like they're extremists, so.
Which I always thought was kind of weird because it is like, as far as flags go, that one's pretty cool. I mean, it's got a good slogan. It's got a snake. I don't understand how you go around with a flag with a snake on it. Just in terms, like it could be a Pantera flag with a snake on it. Like it's pretty cool.
Like a flag with a snake on it is like an 8-year-old boy with his first knife. Like that's a flag that he would he would come up with.
But I think that was funny about like big proponents of like the two-way thing or the gun. Like I have my daughters are named after guns sort of people. It's like, if you're worried about the government coming to try to take your guns, isn't that what you got the guns for? I mean, that's what the guns are for. That's what the written purpose was. So like you bought into it, you know what I mean? Like just by like purchasing a gun, you're taking that responsibility on yourself. And so you can't be almost surprised when like to an extent the government wants to do that to you, because like that means that they're able to depower you in a certain regard. So I definitely it's a super tricky issue for sure. And I always appreciate, because I think I entertain a lot of sort of, I guess you could say, libertarian ideas, but I think it's just more of like, I look at it philosophically as being like, I just don't want anybody to be able to have that much control over another person. I mean, we're talking like in terms of things like the big, word everybody uses now is equity. There's a way to create a more quote unquote equitable society, but I don't think it's going to be done through a certain level of back-ended social engineering. It has to come through like other means. And and I think that's a good way to like reduce what people would call extreme gun violence, for sure. So there's a lot of like, it is a tricky issue for sure. I'm definitely happy the Second Amendment's in place. I'm definitely not a Second Amendment abolisher because it infringes on gun rights. I'd love to see you drop your kids off for school in a tank. Because you're like, I get to do this.
I just ride a cannon to it, like just Right. Well, you were in the Navy.
I was in the Navy,
and I don't know how many. Do you talk about that often? Your service, is it something that I don't know? I feel like a lot of people who are military, like they don't necessarily bring it up. It's like civilians like myself, who want you to talk about it and want you to tell
Yeah, the trick of it is that you never bring it up yourself, but you always want to talk about it. I mean, you do and you don't. I don't. I mean, I consider myself like fortunate in my military career only by virtue of like being around great leadership, being in a good command, but also like more importantly, I kind of like this weird like front seat to history for a little while, just by virtue of like what the time I was in is by circumstance. I wouldn't consider myself like a brave person. That was a bit I was trying for a while. Was that I'm a veteran, but I'm not a hero. I joined when Clinton was president. Like heroes joined after 9/11. Like Pat Tillman. Poor Pat Tillman, man. Jeez Louise.
He should have done choir.
I know. Yeah. You could actually do the choir in the Navy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could sing. You could be part of the Navy band.
I dated a girl whose dad was in Vietnam, but he was in the band, and it wasn't like a USO band. It was he played, I think, clarinet in whatever band they had, entertaining the troops.
Yeah, they have one of those because it's weird. It's weird because you could be like the same rank as somebody, like we could both be like first class petty officers, right? And like in my job in the Navy, I was a firefighter, chemical, biological, radiological warfare, missile defense, and then you got guys like I play the snare drum. You're like, is this fair? Really? Can I get? Right. That's where combat pay and hazard pay comes into play. You know what I mean? And like when you're tax free, when you're forward deployed in like tax free zones, like that's always awesome.
It would be wild if like the drummer in from like the Civil War times, like that just continued. So it's just whoever the drummer was, like if you played drums, if you played snare, no matter what the war is, that's what you're doing. Like you're on fucking recon, but you're playing that drum in the middle of the night.
Yeah, down to the jungle.
yeah. Charlie's sneaking up on you. And shit.
I was in from 2000 to 2005.
2000 to 2000. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We want to. We want an aircraft carrier?
No. I was on a guided missile destroyer called the USS Donald Cook, DDG 75. Wow. I was, so I actually I signed in on like the dotted line, as it were, October, I think it was 17th, 2000, something like that, which was the day that the USS Cole got bombed.
Whew.
And the ship that brought it back, that saved it from sinking and then dragged it back across the sea back to America, was the USS Donald Cook. And that was the ship I ended up being stationed on. So the day that I signed up was the day that action happened. And I ended up being on the ship that saved the ship that was bombed that day. And so I ended up being involved in damage control, which were the primary people who helped save that ship from sinking. And so the people that I like trained under were the people that saved the USS Cole. Wow. And so that was pretty like intense to be around those guys, because they had like a certain like bond, character bond and stuff. Plus it was like a new ship and they had already been out on deployment and stuff like that. The ship had only been around for like a year by the time it had only been around for maybe like 6 months by the time the Cole got bombed. And then, or maybe a year or something like that. And it only been around another 7-8 months by the time I got there after that. So, so that was interesting for sure. Those guys were cool.
Did you have like reservations when that happened to the US Cole?
Yeah. My mom had actually called and left a voicemail for me. Remember back in the day when you had an answering machine on your phone?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have like a phone. There were no such things as mobile phones at this point. You had car phones occasionally. Somebody had a car phone. But or a pager, but So, anyways, my mom left me a voicemail, basically saying like, if you want to back out, like we won't hold it against you, because of what happened. I'm like,
Wait. Your mom said that to you?
my mom said when I was, so the day that the Cole got bombed, when I signed up, coming home from signing up, my mom had left me a voicemail saying, if you don't want to go through with this, then, we won't hold it against you. Like,
but what's she going to do? Like, she work for the Navy?
No. You could, just because you sign a piece of paper before you leave doesn't mean that you're going to the Navy necessarily.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could. What it is it was, I joined what was called the delayed entry program, and it was just so that they could get a commitment out of somebody without having to leave like that day. So I got to pick the time that I left. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to leave after the holidays. So I promise you I'm going to go. And it helped me out because it was like helping me get into certain, like, I could leave when I wanted to leave. And then I could also kind of like pick certain things that I wanted to do because I agreed to like help them out. And so, but you can back out of it. Like, they can't physically make you go do it or anything like that. Like, it's just a piece of paper saying, I intend to join the Navy. Even up until you get to the point, they're trying to weed you out throughout the whole boot camp process and throughout the whole onboarding process for the Navy. Even until you get to like boot camp in and of itself, they're trying to kick you out in the first 48 hours. They don't want you there if you're not psychologically prepared for it. So they want you to tap out and quit. You just gotta stick through it. That's all.
Wow. And did you know that was the kind of stuff you were going to do when you signed up, the damage control stuff?
Oh, hell no. I signed up. I mean, the reason I even joined the Navy is not because I was like overtly patriotic. It was that I lived in Ohio and I wanted to get out of Ohio. And there's not really
there's no boats. There's no boats in Ohio.
There isn't. So I had to go and join, the Navy. So I could go find one. But I was always a bad student, but I always tested well. And my ASVAB score was really high. And then I tested to be like a high up computer technician working on missiles and stuff like that. And I actually qualified for it.
Wow.
But then they were like, well, this requires a security clearance. We need to check if you've ever been arrested or anything like that before. And I had a little bit of what some might say a criminal record.
Some might say there's a lawyer and a judge in Ohio.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it a criminal record. I guess what's a step below being a criminal? Juvenile delinquent. I'd only been arrested twice as an adult by that point, but I've been arrested a couple of times as a kid.
Wow.
So it was like, but it was for dumb stuff,
What kind of dumb stuff?
What did I get arrested for? I was 18 and we had a party at a hotel. I was a senior and there were 17-year-olds there. So it was contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. At 18 or whatever. It was trespassing or something like that. And then I had another trespassing one because I left my car parked somewhere. I forget where. And then I forgot to pay the ticket. And then a cop pulled me over and took me to jail for it. So.
And then the recruits came. Listen, son, if you want to turn your life around, are you ready to kill?
Yeah, but when I was a kid, the thing was all the stuff I was supposed to have was supposed to be expunged. And the stuff I did as a kid was like bad. It was like vandalism and like some other stuff. And it was like more truancy and trespassing and stuff. It was all supposed to be expunged after I went through community service after the last time I got arrested. But lo and behold, the Navy has access to it still. It turns out they can still just really look at anything they want and invade your privacy, even if it's allegedly expunged from your record. Wow. It's probably just expunged from my record, like in terms of like in case I was looking for a job, but not in terms of getting like government clearance, to have access to Tomahawk missiles and stuff like that.
So like this guy, he's gonna take a Tomahawk missile. He's gonna bring it to the hotel with all the underage kids drinking, and he's
and try to sneak it out under his coat.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what he's gonna do. No, that's amazing. I remember you talking to me about the Navy there, and I don't know if you described it as being a fireman in the Navy.
Yeah,
at one point.
That's primarily what it was like fire prevention, but then I also had to deal with chemical, biological, and radiological warfare.
And for everybody, who doesn't know, like is it the most dangerous job, or definitely up there, right?
Statistically, they say that being a shipboard firefighter on a missile carrying battleship in the middle of the ocean is statistically dangerous. Yeah.
What are you more likely to die from? Like what is it, like a
diabetes? No, yeah. Well, we got to go swimming in the ocean. We went swimming in the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is crawling with sharks. Like it's infested with sharks, and they're like, "Yeah, go ahead and go swimming." I'm like, "Okay." So I did for a little bit, but I was so scared of being bitten by a fucking shark in the middle of fucking nowhere, especially in the middle of the Red Sea. Good God.
Good God. So like, just imagine like all the service members, you're fighting like Al Qaeda stuff. How far was Al Qaeda from the Red Sea? That time.
Good question. Well, by this time we were already on our way we were in Iraq. So we were this was the time we went there. I was on the first ship to fire missiles into Baghdad for Operation Iraqi Freedom. And so this was before that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah.
So anyways, so the Persian Gulf, a lot of sea snakes. Those are dangerous. Those are no good for you. And a lot of sharks. So thankfully I did not get bit.
Sea snakes, sharks, and Arabs.
I was really concerned about two of them, to be honest with you. So, I mean, and actually, in all fairness, like it wasn't officially on my record or anything like that, but I was a conscientious objector to like being over in Iraq because I did not see any connection between 9/11 and other, like 9/11 in Iraq. Just didn't see it. I couldn't put the two together in my head, so I was like, I don't think we should be here. And I didn't pull the trigger. It wasn't my decision. I was just a firefighter, but I was just like, I was not afraid to voice my opinion that this sucks. I don't like it.
And they're like, there's a reason why we didn't give this guy clearance.
Right, exactly.
He's asking way too many questions.
I would have been able to pull the trigger. I've been like, you know what? I gotta sit this killing out, you guys.
Well, I look at the time I was in college at the time, and I remember like talking to my friends and being like, "This doesn't make any sense." Like,
right?
Like how many of the guys were Saudi Arabian? What are we doing in Iraq? I don't. If you're gonna make that leap,
right. And this seems really motivated by the fact that this guy was the son of the other guy that tried to fuck with this guy.
Well, I mean, I remember George W. Bush talking about like, he threatened my dad. Guy tried to kill me. And this is so funny. This is bringing me back like so many memories. I remember that on TV, and then I was riding the subway, and there were two guys having like kind of like a subway argument, but it seemed like around that time people were really getting along, especially in New York.
Sure.
And these two guys were two strangers having an argument over this political thing. I don't know how it started. And then the guy says, but he threatened his father. And then the dude's like, all right, I can see that. It's like, what? See what, man?
Yeah, I don't think that so you can't send other people to their death over that sort of thing. That's just like, that's antithetical to like what it is that I thought that we were supposed to be about. and like I don't want to rally behind a dictator like that or somebody like that. Like that's ridiculous. So yeah, no, I 1,000% agree with. Yeah, so I was like one of those people, and it wouldn't have done me a lot of good to like file paperwork on it because I could have been a real troublemaker and stuff like that. But like I'd already been such a bad kid that it was like if I fuck up the military, like I didn't do good in high school, I didn't do great in college, and then now if I fuck up the military, like what does this say about me as a person? So I just kept my mouth shut, got my college money, moved on.
Where'd you end up going to college?
So I went through a couple of different ones because I was also having to work. So I did some while I was in the Navy, Tidewater community, a bunch of different community colleges, and string together a couple of like certificates and like minor degrees and stuff like that. So like for a while I was a certified like engineer for like boat mechanics and things like that. I mean, EMT, and all that sort of stuff, all these sort of things that like marine engineering and stuff like that like in fire science that you put together for a job at FEMA. And then thankfully I ended up not taking a job at FEMA because I would have went from 9/11 to Iraq to Katrina. Yeah. And it's just like, man, nope, I just go to Charleston, South Carolina instead, hang out on the beach.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, Derek, I want to halt this part of the conversation, and then I want to grab you for a locals exclusive.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for your time. And you guys, please check out Derek. It's at Hump Derek on Instagram. And there you'll find clips of his work and also the play Race, the movie, the play that is going to have its run in May in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So
come see it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm going to end the broadcast right